So it would be really easy if it was just a matter of saying, well, I won't eat wheat from now on. I won't go out and have some wheat. But as you know, wheat is in everything from cereals to breads, the obvious sorts of things that we see, to pasta, to things you may not expect it in, like soy sauce or Play-Doh or supplements or medications or soups or all sorts of other things where it really isn't as obvious as just looking and seeing, oh. And that's why it's important to start learning about label reading, about what to look for. So the easiest thing to look for is wheat, because wheat is one of the most common food allergies. It's one of the top 8 food allergies. So on all labels since 2006, for all food labels that were made in the United States, wheat needs to be very clearly labeled. Essentially, if something has wheat in it, it'll say flour, and in parentheses it'll say wheat. Or at the bottom there'll be a statement saying, whatever ingredients in it contains wheat. And this makes life a lot easier, because there are lots of different things that may contain wheat, but they also may not. Things like maltodextrin, things like MSG. There are other things that we used to worry about 3 or 4 years ago when you saw them on the label, whether or not it actually had wheat, and then you had to call the manufacturer, and it was a nice big process. Now, if it has wheat, it has to say. But again, that's only for foods. This is a food law. So if you're looking at supplements, you're looking at medications, you're looking at something you picked up at the Thai market, you're looking at chocolates from Britain, you're looking at something that's not food, that's not from this country, or if you have a cupboard that tends to have things that tend to be a wee bit older. This law only came into effect in 2006, so if you have anything older still on your shelves, it may not be labeled in this fashion. Barley is the trickiest, because barley can show up as barley or barley malt or malt flavoring, or it doesn't really need to be labeled at all. It's because it's not one of the top allergens, so it doesn't really need to be labeled in any way. Rye is pretty simple because it isn't a common ingredient. Aside from rye bread and and other different things, it's really not something that we see on a regular basis. And oats are, again, something to look out for. One of the things that may trip people up is that dates are actually dusted with oats. I can't count how many times people have gone to the airport and found trail mix or something like that that's been dusted. I didn't realize that doesn't need to say. A lot of times when people are eating things that are gluten-free, there's almost this idea of, well, it's gluten-free so I can have it, but there's still gluten-free donuts. Just because something's gluten-free doesn't necessarily mean that it's good for you. Gluten-free things tend to be lower in fiber, simply because a lot of times things we have wheat bran or have oat bran added to them. A lot of times people will talk about their high fiber cereal, their wheat bran cereal, their total cereal, whatever it may be. Those things tend to have a lot of fiber in them, whereas traditionally sort of the old school gluten-free things were from cornstarch or potato starch or rice flour, which are completely nutritionally empty. When people are switching, they often are getting less fiber and even more calories. Also, these foods are higher glycemic foods, so they're digested more quickly, they spike your blood sugar more, so you may even end up sort of craving more of those foods. The other issue is that our food supply has been fortified in this country for years. They did surveys of basically, well, what are people getting enough of, what are they not getting enough of? And then the government fortified all of our foods with folate, with iron, with different B vitamins. But gluten-free foods are considered specialty foods, and so while any bread that you pick up, or any cereal that you pick up, or any pasta you pick up in the regular grocery store, it is going to be fortified, gluten-free products are usually not fortified. There are new brands that are coming out on the market now that are fortified because people are becoming more and more aware of what's out there and searching for fortified products, but it's not the default. And so often when you're doing a one-to-one switch from cornflakes to cornflakes, common sense would say that you were getting a somewhat equivalent product, but often you really aren't. So it's another good reason to really focus more on nutrition.